One of my all-time favorite echeverias is Lola, a silvery blue with a pink blush. Did you know you can propagate this plant from its leaves? Aaron Ryan, General Manager of Succulent Gardens, is going to show us how.
Okay, so Lola is also one of my favorite echeverias. It's a cross between Echeveria lilacina and Echeveria derenbergii. And it's a fairly solitary plant, so it's difficult to get offsets off this plant. So the best way to propagate is through leaf propagation. And we can basically dissect this plant of its leaves, and I'll show you how to do that.
So I'm always concerned when I'm removing leaves from an echeveria that I'm breaking them in such a way that they're not going to propagate. So what's the secret?
Right, well fortunately Lola's much easier than others. There are some difficult echeverias to detach leaves from, but basically the main rule is you want to make sure you get the complete leaf detached from the stem. All the meristem tissue of the plant is right where the leaf meets the stem here. So if you were to tear this leaf, for instance, that's not going to take. You haven't gotten enough meristem tissue, and this is just going to wither away and rot. So what you want to make sure you do is you detach it completely cleanly. And I generally do it by putting my forefinger up on the top of the stem, and then just with my middle finger and my thumb, just kind of peel it down.
Oh my gosh, let me try that.
This one even has a little piece of stem, which is great because it's going to be more meristem.
It almost looks like that hand?
Right, yeah, sure.
Okay, so put your thumb under it and your finger on it. And then
just gently pull it down.
Gently. Hey, look at that.
Exactly. You got some stem on there too, so that's perfect.
Look at that little stuff.
That looks like it's going to work. The stem detached, but you still have the complete.
Doing so well there. Okay.
So essentially, we can just keep peeling these off until we get to the center. So do this quickly here.
You know, I've noticed that sometimes where a leaf will detach, there is a little nubbin in the center that almost looks like a thread, or I don't know, is that the meristem tissue?
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, all the plant's DNA is stored right there at that meristem tissue. So that's where you essentially, that's what you want to get. So if you get a piece of the stem, with some of the more stubborn plants, Lola is fairly easy, but with some of the Echeveria hybrids, for instance, you want to get a little piece of stem, and you can even do that by taking a razor blade and cutting a little sliver of the stem into the side of the stem so you can get that leaf detachment.
That's a great idea.
But with Lola, we don't need to do that. So I generally tear it down to about this size, and then I take my pruners and I actually will cut this back down to about 1/4 inch or so. And you can reroot this rosette so you don't destroy it. If you were to pull all the leaves off, then you're going to have a dead plant. But by leaving a little bit of stem, you can just reroot that plant. So then you don't have to kill your mother rosette.
All right, so what do you do with the
So now we have all the leaves
leaves
here. What we can do, what I prefer to do, and some people have different methods, some people will leave them in an open flat, and when they produce roots, we'll stick them onto a mud flat. I just like to put dry soil into a flat so I can just skip that process. And I just layer them down into a flat. The rosette's going to form on this concave edge, so it's going to come up right from the very end up here. That's where it's going to form. So I generally like to have this upright. There is a bit of a bend, but what will happen is the rosette will form here, and the roots will actually run down below, and they'll find their way down to the soil. And once those roots produce, you can start watering these in.
all right.
Before that, you want to leave them dry to avoid any sort of rot.
So even though the roots haven't quite reached the soil yet, it's okay to go ahead and maybe spritz them?
You can spritz them, keep them damp, exactly. Once they have roots, then they're able to transfer the water from the roots into the rosette that it's forming. But until it has roots, you want to keep them dry just because
they might rot.
Exactly.
Exactly. Perfect.
And so what I do is I really load for space efficiency. We work here at a nursery and we need to maximize the efficiency of our space. So what I usually do is I do every other one. I stack them together like this.
Kind of like making an hors d'oeuvre plate.
Right, exactly. You can kind of get creative doing it.
Now, I would have thought that you would turn the leaf over so that the part that's curved, you know,
bends down.
Bends down.
Yeah, so in some cases, with the echeverias, you don't need to do that. It's better to put it upright this way because the rosette is going to form this way. So if you put it upside down, what will happen is the rosette will form, but it'll be a little confused. It will eventually migrate over and come up over the leaf surface.
You just don't, you don't want to have to work that hard.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
With some other plants that take from leaves, like certain crassulas that bends, crassula watch chain, for instance, crassula muscosa, that bends so dramatically that you really do have to turn it on the other side in order for that to work.
Would you consider that a stacked crassula?
Yes, it's a very stacked, very
Yeah,
densely
very
stacked
dense.
crassula,
Okay.
but it's definitely different. It's not quite a pagoda shape. It's more of a just a very tightly stacked
Oh, there's
crassula.
so many things I'd like to see you do. That being one of them, because that just seems impossible to try to propagate.
Yeah.